Hello, my name is Matt, and I'm about to say what I think on the Dark Souls series, specifically Dark Souls 2, but also I'm going to say my experience with Dark Souls 1. So basically, I like Dark Souls 1, okay? I thought Dark Souls 1 was among the best games ever made, not because it's difficult, but despite its difficulty. The difficulty for me personally was a byproduct of its intelligent, clever design. That's what I think about Dark Souls. Obviously, the greatest asset of Dark Souls, unlike any other game, were two things for me. Again, I keep saying for me because, once again, this is my personal opinion. Don't take my word as gospel. I am not saying in behalf of the team that made Dark Souls. I'm not saying that my word is ultimate. I'm just saying that this is my own opinion. So, just as what I have said before a while ago, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 1, the first Dark Souls 1's greatest strengths were two things for me. First of all, its level design. Whoa, where'd you came from? I'm actually playing the game while speaking, so don't criticize me for sucking too much. I have to think my thoughts and speak them as I play this game, so I may die or I may screw up, I may do things weirdly, but it's just me playing and speaking at the same time, so don't kill me, okay? um, I keep I keep forgetting what I said. What I said a while ago was that Dark Souls had the level design in Dark Souls, but was one of its greatest strengths. Okay. The other was the enemy design. Okay. It's not the lore. The lore is just there for players to hang on to sustain their playthroughs, because without story, uh, everything will be pointless. So I'm not saying the lore is bad. It's just it's not the main focus of the game. And I do think the lore is actually good. Again, Dark Souls 1. Oh, I died. I died. Oh no. Dark Souls 1 is one of those games where everything just fits so perfectly. Okay? Again, the combat, the level design, the enemy design, the lore, the overall tone, the themes, the symbolisms, they just feed into this greater whole, which do not feel half-baked. They do not feel contrived in any way. They do feel well established. They do feel well integrated with each other, and the result, well, it feels really a huge milestone. Like for me playing Dark Souls 1, and it actually sank right in about 2 to 3 hours of the game, where I just reached the undead burg. Sorry. After the area where you'd see the second boss, I think, the Taurus demon. That area was phenomenal. Um, it had great sound effects. It well informs the player, not to the point of over um, overblowing you with effects in its sound. I think the sound design in the game is also underrated, because it's so subtle actually to be noticed, but when you do notice it, it is well done to the point where you actually notice that the sound itself is good. just because it weaves itself so seamlessly and so subtlety. If there's a word, subtlety. I think I'm using the term wrong. It weaves the sound itself weaves itself into the game so so sneaky. If you get what I'm saying, that you don't notice how it helps hugely in uh, in in giving you feedback and at the same time fueling your imagination of the world, the excellent world in which Dark Souls is set in. And so that, and of course the combat, which um, on its own, I could say combat per se is um, not impressive actually, but I love how it excels in establishing Dark Souls as a front as a game which doesn't rely on cheap scripted events to make you feel good. If you get what I mean. Dark Souls rely. Oh man. Oh, don't kill me. Dark Souls is one of those games where it's the moment to moment moments that stand out. It's not that big twist in the end, like Bioshock. Where yeah, I'm getting sidetracked a bit here, but Bioshock is a good game. However, the praise garnered by Bioshock isn't indicative of its actual gameplay, if you get what I mean. Um, Obviously, Bioshock Infinite was praised because of its attempt in subverting you with gamer logic, just like what it did to Bioshock. However, in this one, in Infinite, uh, the story went a little bit too far to the point where I was as challenged with the narrative as I was challenged with that with that horrendous end game set piece. I was playing on hard difficulty on Bioshock Infinite, and that end game was basically torture for me. It was very hard, and not in a Dark Souls way. It was very cheap. Sorry, it was very uh, difficult actually, not cheap, but a bit cheap, I can say so. But oh, oh man, there's something calling me. Oh, go to the bonfire first. I'm gonna be back in a minute. The phone is ringing. Wait. I am back. Oh man, I just ran an errand for my mom on the phone. So, once again, oh, where was I? See, that's what happens when you aren't on the proper. Um, you're in the groove in talking. Oh man, oh man, Dark Souls 1 had once again great combat, great level design. But Dark Souls 2, I'm sorry to say, but Dark Souls 2 is just inferior. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that Dark Souls 2 is a bad game. No, Dark Souls 2 is still a very, very good game. However, Dark Souls 1 is a different kind of game. The standard in that game is just so high to be reached, for me to be honest. Um, First of all, the locations. Now you have all read in the forums or in other posts about the level design in Dark Souls 1, how it integrates so seamlessly with each other. And basically, Dark Souls 1 for me is defined, if I can speak, if I can only select one good thing from Dark Souls 1 and then attach it to a banner and then wave it around to all gamers who haven't still played Dark Souls and wants to know what's excellent in Dark Souls 1. If I have to choose only one thing, it won't be the lore actually. It won't be the combat. I would say it would be the level design. I have never seen level design as is as exquisitely produced and meticulously crafted as the level design found in Dark Souls 1. Basically, the thing uh, that catches me every time is um, you have this feeling in Dark Souls 1, right, where it feels like a linear corridor game, and at the same time, it feels like an open world sandbox game. I mean, yes, the some of the areas are tight, some of the areas are pretty narrow, pretty small, but then all of them feed into and weave, integrate and they weave and integrate very smartly to this big, huge, intricate world where you basically don't see the edges where the ends meet. You have the sewers. I mean, one of my favorite levels is the sewers actually, because of how it gives you a sense of verticality to an otherwise grounded game. Basically, you don't fly in Dark Souls, right? But then when you go to the sewers, it hits you like, man, I'm just beneath. I'm now beneath the game world, and I haven't still encountered a loading screen except for the bonfires when you die. But basically, that doesn't um, that isn't shoehorned to the game. Uh, It basically acts as a spawn reset point for the player when they die, but without dying. Okay, you can basically traverse the world of Dark Souls without dying, and you won't see a single loading screen. It's a testament to the level design of Dark Souls. And Dark Souls 2, on the other hand, has the same technical premise: no loading screens, all seamless. However, the art in the game and the overall tone uh, can maybe go a bit inconsistent, and that's the nicest term that I can say for Dark Souls 2. Um, I can notice this at first actually, right at the start. Okay, after the tutorial, you'll be sent to Majula, and then the way to Majula has signs of it being kinda not uh, not well integrated actually. The tutorial sections have this different doors, right, where you can go and access the tutorial levels in Dark Souls style. And for a new player like me, for example, me, I was starting, it didn't bother me because yeah, just a tutorial. But then when you go back and back, okay, back and forth, and you die, back and forth, uh, there's this sense of Dark Souls 2 being set in a world structure similar to that of a wheel. That may not that may not sound as a bad thing though. However, what made Dark Souls 1 so great was the fact that you don't realize how the world is fabricated. There's no a natural sense of production, if you get what I mean. There's no sense of 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 it being a game world per se. Dark Souls 2 has a problem, has this problem of kinda signaling the player that hey, I'm a game, and that to me is a problem because oh, I just teleported to the same spot. That to me is a problem because what? Well, okay, I'm gonna go a bit too far here. I'm gonna go back to my own pillars on video games because obviously I'm right here at the point where I'm, I'm talking about Dark Souls, which is one of the best games I ever played. So why not talk about games per se? Why and talk about what makes them good? Okay, so video games are supposed to be interactive, um, are interactive expression of an individual's message. That is a video game to me. If you strip it down to its basic roots, video games are basically interactive expressions of someone. Well, some may say, "Oh, it has to be fun. It has to be this long. It has to be, it has to, it has to be voice acted. It has to have a story." Well, that could may be true. However, they must always be in conjunction with the premise of the point. Um, that could be the reason why I keep on saying and saying that the best game I ever played is actually Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, just like Total Biscuit. Well, because I think that game is phenomenal in its function of using the mechanic of the game itself to strike the player, as well as using the story with the mechanics of the control and the control scheme to just be one, just to blend with each other in 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 expressing its point of love, of growing up, of sacrifice. And I think that's what video games are supposed to do, not just to be time passers, not just to be hobbies, but to be industry leading mediums that well surpasses movies and books. Now you see, if a video game tries to mimic a film, that would be good. However, in the long run, when games resort to that, I don't think that separates gaming, to be honest. It's just a film, and you just press a button and then it plays while it waits for you to push that button. So I don't see any special uh, uh, mention of gaming if it resorts to that kind of a road. But if games use the element which separates it from the rest, in this case, interaction, if it used that interaction to to convey a point and to bring out its message, then I think possibilities will open up for gaming as a medium to, well, just be innovative in its own. And so that's what bothers me with Dark Souls 2 is that sometimes it comes across as a bit mechanical, to be honest. Unlike Dark Souls 1, where uh, you won't actually notice you going through the different stages of themes in Dark Souls 1. Here, I'm very sad to say that I'm a bit aware of it. Like, for example, I'm gonna rest in here. Anyway, see you. I'm gonna let you see. Right here, I'm in Majula, right? And then these are the areas which I can access for the game to progress. Now, in Dark Souls 1, these areas tend to be usually populated, either with NPCs or monsters. Right now, obviously, because it's the start, there are no NPCs except for this lonely guy, blacksmith, who I need to have the key to be able to access his shop, and then the merchant. I don't know if the merchant is here. Yeah, let me see if the merchant is here. Yeah, the merchant is here. So basically, right now it's a little bit barren of NPCs, but that's okay, right? Basically, this is your safe haven. So I have no choice but to push on. So for example, I'm gonna go right here. Oh, what's going on here? And then here's a bit of a problem, right? This moment right here is okay for me at least. Just some long corridor with nothing. It sets the tone, I get it. I'm going to feel alone, I get it. And then I go through some more long corridors with nothing. It's light. I go through here. Winding staircase. Ha ha ha. I feel alone. I get it now. What then? I see a chest. You see, and this is the same with the forest level. I had to go through a similar kind of area, such as this, where there's nothing. interesting going on. And so that presents to me as a problem because first of all, it takes me away from the experience of having to expect something. Okay, so in Dark Souls 1, there can there can be times where it can come across as this. However, it usually makes a point using that. However, right now I can't say that I can get a point with this. I don't know. It may contain items, but so far I haven't seen any deeper uh, effect or deeper significance to the game through this. Now, I noticed something different here. I've said a while ago that the difference between Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 1 is how it mechanical it feels. So here I'm coming back up to this new area and then bam, a castle. Now why a castle? Why? I just came through a Majula level, which is a bit tranquil. I go through some medieval corridor sewers area, and kind of makes sense. But and then I get here, castle. It looks good, really. It looks good though. That's one thing. But again, I just have some problems with how it merges with the levels. Like this bonfire. But again, I might sound nitpicky, but maybe I am. But that's just because I always love Dark Souls, really, and how it basically uses the levels in conjunction with its themes to just prove its point. So right now I'm fighting this guys, and for me, this means one thing. The inclusion of this guys, this big hulking guys, means that I'm not supposed to be here. And in a way, it's forcing me to go check out other areas. I'm not saying it's bad. It's basically one of the um, uh, ways where the developers communicate to the player in 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 navigating the game. But once again, I think the inclusion of this big it all comes down to to enemy design. Once again, these big enemy types are a little bit too obvious to prove that point. Now, I always liked subtlety in Dark Souls, and in here, this can come across as a little bit on the nose. Big hulking guy in the front, along with other guy with a big hammer, and the narrow pathways. Mm, it's obvious that they don't want me to be here. Now, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is what I noticed with the game. That Dark Souls 2 at times loses that subtlety, that Dark Souls, and that ambiguity, to be exact, that Dark Souls 1 uh, had, which made it very, very um, good and so mysterious. If you get what I mean. So obviously I can't make it to this point. I better go back. But so that's what I'm my mind is contained in that that if you're looking for the same Dark Souls spirit in Dark Souls 1 in Dark Souls 2, maybe you could be a bit disappointed. But then again, I like Dark Souls 2 for the fact that it's different. Just uh just as I liked Grand Theft Auto 5 for being different than Grand Theft Auto 4, and different from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. So that's my thoughts on Dark Souls 2. Obviously, I had more, but for this moment, I have to sign out because I have to live a life of my own and I have to go back to the sewer level, the crappy sewer level. Um, so yeah, I'm basically like to see you again soon. If you have any thoughts about my new video, my first video, just please comment and please don't be so mean. I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna say goodbye now. Wait, let me use my gesture. Bow. Goodbye.